Hey everyone, welcome to our fourth video on the properties of water, and in this video we're going to discuss water's role as a universal solvent. Before we get into discussing water's versatility as a solvent, we need to talk about what a solvent is. A solvent is a liquid that other substances, or solutes, can be dissolved in to make a solution, an evenly distributed mixture of particles in a liquid. In biology, most of our solutions are aqueous, or water-based. It turns out that as solvents go, water is one of the most versatile. We can even go as far as to call it a universal solvent because of the number of substances that can be dissolved in it. The reason for this is, not hydrogen bonds, but the molecular properties that allowed those hydrogen bonds to form in the first place. Polarity. Let's consider an example of something we might want to dissolve in water, sodium chloride, or table salt. As we looked at previously, sodium chloride is ionic, with the sodium ion being positively charged and the chloride ion being negatively charged. Water molecules contain both partial positive and partial negative charges, due to the polar covalent bonds linking the hydrogens to the oxygen. When we put the salt into water, the ionic bond can be easily broken, and the water can orient itself to face the oppositely charged ion, with the negative oxygens towards the positive sodium and the positive hydrogens towards the negative chloride, forming what we call a hydration shell around the ions. And substances don't have to be ionic for this to happen. As long as there are polar regions on the surface, even really large molecules like proteins or even DNA can be dissolved in water due to its polarity. Now, substances can be classified as either hydrophilic or hydrophobic, depending on how well they interact with water. Hydrophilic substances are polar or ionic, like salts or sugars, and mix well with water. Substances that are hydrophobic, on the other hand, tend to be nonpolar and do not mix with water, like oils and other lipids. This is really important for cells, since they are mostly water, as is the environment around them. And so hydrophobicity is an important property of the membrane that separates each cell from its external environment, and we'll discuss this more in a later section. Now, we often measure the concentration of solutes in a unit called moles. 1 mole is defined as 6.02 times 10 to the 23 molecules. This is known as Avogadro's number. Now, if you're not familiar with scientific notation, this means 602 with 21 more zeros after it, so it's a really huge number. Scientific notation like this is a way for us to work with really big or really small numbers in an easier to handle format. The number is written between 1 and 10, and the exponent tells us how many decimal places, or orders of magnitude, are present in the actual number. 6.02 times 10 to the 23 tells us that we would have to move the decimal point 23 places to the right to get to our real number. So 602 with 21 more zeros. If we're using numbers in this format, for example, calculating numbers of molecules in multiple moles, once our integer becomes greater than 10, we go back down to 1 and increase the exponent by 1. Now, this particular number and the unit mole was determined such that 1 mole of Daltons would have a mass of 1 gram. Remember that each proton or neutron in an atom has a mass of 1 Dalton, and so the mass of a molecule, measured in Daltons, is equivalent to the molar mass, measured in grams. For example, a molecule of water has a mass of 18 Daltons, 1 for each hydrogen, which only has 1 proton and no neutrons, and 16 for the oxygen, which has 8 protons and 8 neutrons. A mole of water, the amount that contains 6.02 times 10 to the 23 molecules, then has a mass of 18 grams. If we're talking about the number of moles in a solution, we would describe that as molarity, or moles per liter of solution. Remember that a liter is 1,000 milliliters, so a 1 molar solution would have 1 mole in every liter, or 1 mole in every 1,000 milliliters of solvent. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to check out the other videos on the properties of water and the video on the acids, bases, and pH scale.